everything I've shown you so far has been pretty nice round numbers, but we can use this same equation and, definition of logarithms and trial and error to calculate some more complicated ones. And I know you could just press the number on your calculator, but I'm going to get you to do some of these anyway in the exercises, just so you get a feel for what's going on. And what you're going to need is the button on your calculator that looks like this, that allows you to raise any number to the power that you want. So I'm just going to work through a couple of examples to show you what I mean. So for example, what is the logarithm in base 2 of 5? Right, so we know that 2 to the power 2 is 4, and we know that 2 to the power 3 is 8. So therefore, because 5 is in between 4 and 8, we know that the logarithm in base 2 of 5 is in between 2 and 3. These two numbers. And then we can just carry on in that same way, narrowing it down more and more. So we know that 2 to the power 2.0, so now we're going to go on to the next decimal place. We know that 2.0, 2 to the power 2.0 is 4, and we know that I look up on my calculator by using this button, that 2 to the power 2.5 is 5.65. So therefore, we can narrow it down a bit further. So the logarithm in base 2 of 5 is in between 2.0 and 2.5. We can do better than that, so I typed in a few more. So 2 to the power 2.2 is 4.59, my calculator tells me. 2 to the power 2.3 is 4.92. 2 to the power 2.4 is 5.27. So therefore, the log in base 2 of 5 is in between this and this. So 5 is in between 4.92 and 5.27. So that implies that the logarithm in base 2 of 5 is in between 2.3 and 2.4. So now I'm just going to do the same thing again for one more decimal place. I looked up a few and I found that 2 to the power 2.32 equals 4.99, and 2 to the power 2.33 equals 5.03. So we're getting quite close now, aren't we? Okay, so 2 to the power, so that means that the log in base 2 of 5 is in between 2.32 and 2.33. Great, so I'm going to want you to do a few more like that. And then if we type into our calculator and we ask what is the logarithm in base 2 of 5, it gives us the answer. It's equal to 2.321928 blah blah blah. But we got there ourselves without using the logarithm button, just by using the power button. Alright, so I'm just going to work through one more example. Now, what's the log in base 10 of 23? So we know off the top of our heads that 10 to the power 1 is 10, and 10 to the power 2 is 100. So therefore we know that the log in base 10 of 23 is in between, 23 is in between 10 and 100, so the logarithm must be in between 1 and 2. So just the same, I'm going to work down, excuse me. So you know that 10 to the power 1.0 is 10, and 10 to the power 1.5, my calculator tells me, is 31. Good. So the log in base 10 of 23 is in between 1.0 and 1.5. And just the same as before, I'm going to try out a few more. So 10 to the power 1.2 is 15.85. These are all rounded numbers. 10 to the power 1.3 is 19.95. So we're not going to need this one now, are we? And 10 to the power 1.4 is 25.12. So the log in base 10 of 23 is in between 1.3 and 1.4, because 23 is in between 19.95 and 25.12. And just one more decimal place, and I did some calculations, and 10 to the power 1.36 is 22.91, and 10 to the power 1.37 is equal to 23.44. So log in base 10 23 is in between 1.36 and 1.37. So that's quite precise, I think. That's a pretty good job. Okay, so then log, if we type it into the calculator and ask for the log of 23, it tells us 1.3617278, blah blah blah. Alright, so that's just something to help you calculate logarithms without using any buttons labelled logarithm on your calculator.